Hey, this is Carl, also known as Zarepath in Custom Magic Community. I am back with another Custom Standard Deck Tech video. It's been a while, so sorry about that. Things have been a bit busy, and yeah. However, we have the Custom Core 2020 Grand Prix happening now. Round one starts today, and I wanted to just talk through my deck that I chose. I really wanted to choose something that used some of the sets that are rotating out at the end of this year. So Rakoa, Erelu, and Scriptures of Urshad are the three sets that will be leaving. They've all had pretty profound impacts on the format. So I wanted to pick a deck that really used some of the core constructed offerings of those sets. But I also wanted to win the tournament, which, I haven't been doing that great at actually winning with my decks, which is unfortunate. But one thing that I've realized is I think the meta right now is proactive decks are better than reactive decks. I haven't seen a really scary, solid, or impressive reactive deck for a while. I've tried my hand at them, and they just haven't worked out. Part of that is me, I'm just not that great at building reactive decks. I think you have to be a better deck builder to build really good reactive decks, or know the meta really, really well and test it a lot, refine it a lot, and I just haven't done that to my control decks or my mid-rangey decks. However, linear proactive decks are a little easier to make, I think. And one linear strategy that has, kind of fallen to the wayside is Bogles. Bogles used to be incredibly good back when we had 1-mana, 1/1 hexproof creatures. I think the last time we had one of those was way back in Villains. Now, we've seen kind of an aura package from Rakoa that goes excellent with Bogles, with Ancestral Marking, Boon Artisan, Moonweaver, but we've kind of lost the hexproof. When Metropolis came in, this was one of the cards I designed as a superiority card it's a Boggle that can turn on, which felt a little more fair to me. I think this has a better gameplay than a traditional Boggle, but it also means that constructed it's harder to rely on it. So sometimes you have to wait a while before you actually cast it if you want it to not be removed. You have to try and get your life totals manipulated through some other way, whether that's hitting them with Boon Artisans first, or if they use their Mana Confluence a few too many times, and then you land your Enforced Ranger. Private Eye was also Metropolis, but it's a fun what's the term? Not a callback, but when Zangi brought in Secrets of the River Cities, they also had the card Private Eye, and so we made sure that our types matched. And a 3-mana 2/3 hexproof is not amazing for constructed, but in a deck that desperately wants its hexproof bodies to load up auras on, it does the job. Having only 8 Boggles is not wonderful, particularly when 4 of them are conditional and 4 of them come down late. But the deck's strength, this Boggles deck, its strength is not in the creatures themselves so much as it is in the auras. You'll notice Boon Artisan and Moonweaver, they don't have hexproof, but their synergies with auras are just so good. They can get really out of hand. Boon Artisan can become like a 4/4 really quick. And Moonweaver, once you cast it, you can cast an aura spell before they have a chance to remove the Moonweaver. So, you cast the Moonweaver, they have to wait for it to enter play in order to get priority. But before they get priority again, you cast an aura, you get your card back before they remove it. Of course, you lose the aura, but a nice thing about these auras, particularly Ancestral Marking, is that you have a very strong chance of getting that back into your hand. So I mentioned, so that works in many matchups. Like these creatures, the value from this, and then the size and snowbally nature of Boon Artisan, a lot of times can just win you the game. Particularly after sideboarding, okay, I'm against Boggles, should I remove my removal or not? Because the removal is actually important for Moonweaver and Boon Artisan, but it's a lot of times it'll do nothing when it matters against Enforced Ranger and Private Eye. So I like putting that question to them. I'd rather everything at hexproof, obviously, but I think the synergy from these two cards is from Rakoa is just excellent and worth having in there. Ancestral Marking is the main aura that helps things explode exponentially. As far as you're piling on auras, then you land an aura that gives you like +6/+6 or whatever. And notice it doesn't have to be each aura on that creature. So you can put this on one creature while you have auras on a separate creature if you're worried about them somehow removing the creature you want to pile this and your other auras on. The other aura that is really good from Metropolis is Stirring Pride. This is good because it gives you lifelink and +2/+2, which is really important. Getting some size is good because some decks, like, it'll actually take you a bit to stack the auras enough that your creatures are actually bigger than theirs because of the ale tokens from the dwarf and things like that. Having trample is important so they can't just chump you forever. But also, the life gain it's giving you helps you stabilize against aggro, helps you race better. But also, if the creature's removed or killed for whatever reason, disaster strikes, use a sweeper, you can get this back into your hand, along with Ancestral Marking being returned when you cast another aura. And I like that, yeah. So the fact that we don't always have hexproof is okay, because sometimes if these guys do get removed, you're still getting auras back. Other 4-ofs, Spectral Boon is from Secrets of the River Cities. It's just a solid +2/+2 aura for 2 mana that also makes it so they can't chump, they can't block it. I mean, they can, but you can choose to just bypass their 1/1 token and deal 13 damage to their face. So that, in addition to string, like, these are good ways to make sure that your damage gets through and they can't just chump you forever with tokens. Ancestral, I did that one. Hanaru's Courage is really good, mostly because it's 1 mana and it gives you a creature and it counts as an aura. Like, that's so many things for 1 mana. A lot of times on turn 3, I want to play a Moonweaver and Hanaru's Courage to immediately get the value from the aura and also get a blocker up, and also the thing that I'm stacking my auras on gets Vigilance, which is really important in a Bogles deck if you're building up a tower that can both attack and defend for racing purposes. And that's all of the auras that are in multiples. Other auras are 1-ofs, and the way we can get away with these 1-ofs here, and maybe this isn't the best deck building, but I wanted to try it, is because of Commune with Contra. Commune with Contra is from Erelu. Really good card. You look at 5 cards, you get an enchantment or a land. Really excellent for finding those auras or those lands that you need. Sometimes you need to hit your 4th land so that your next turn you can play a Moonweaver and an aura before it's removed. Or just playing some of the more expensive auras like Stirring Pride or Griffin's Grace. It's important to hit those land drops. Sometimes you need to find a blue source for your Private Eye on turn 3. That helps you with that, but also it helps you find auras. One of the issues with Bogles is it's very A+B, and something that can help you marry A+B with a little more consistency is really good. Note, however, that if you're looking for a Boggle, this might find you 4 Boggles that you can't put into your hand, and they all go to the bottom of your deck, which is not wonderful for you. So the timing of when you cast this is important. I'm not sure if you need to aggressively mulligan for turn 1 plays, Boon Artisan or Enforce Ranger, but it probably doesn't hurt, right? That's something I'm still figuring out as I play. Ignore chess.com, please. Okay. Other auras. 1-ofs. Griffin's Grace, Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Lifelink. This kind of gives you everything you want except for size. The Flying and the First Strike and the Vigilance and Life, those are all excellent things to have with Bogles. The fact that Stirring Pride already does a lot of it is helpful, but being able to grant Flying can be important in some decks if you need to be blocking their evasive stuff. 4 mana is a little expensive, but it does so much, I thought it was worth it as a 1/1. Mighty Persistence, obviously, is even more expensive, but it gives a lot of size. The main thing I was thinking about here was if you know they have a sweeper, we don't have a lot of ways to grant indestructible to our creatures, at least not in the main deck. And this is something you can do to at least get your Boggle back in like a one turn, you know, huge swing with the Boggle before they find some way to remove it. So yeah, that's the thought there as a one of. Ranger's Curiosity, this is mostly just for card flow. I kind of wish it cost 1 mana instead of 2, but what you gonna do? You work with what you got. Moonweaver is susceptible to removal. If you have Boggles, Boggle Towers going, but you need more card flow to compete, stacking Ranger's Curiosity on there can do the job. Rhinodophobia, this is another 1 mana play that you could, you know, technically start the game with. My thinking here with Rhinodophobia was 16 creatures is a little low. I would like a little more, but I don't want my enchantment count to get too low. But also, I think the best thing about Rhinodophobia, I mean, it has its evasion, right? But the best thing, I think, is that Commune with Contra can find it. Commune with Contra can't find any creatures for you, and in fact, as I mentioned earlier, it might bury them, which would be actively bad for you if you're looking for one. But Rhinodophobia is one that you can find with Commune with Contra and grab. It will not have hexproof, so this play is mostly for the matchups where they don't have the kind of removal density you're worried about, or they've already used a lot of the removal on your Boon Artisans and Moonweavers or whatever. Kind of a situational thing, but I like it as one of. Lands, green-white is most important. Green for the turn 1 plays, and white for the auras. Most of the good auras are white. Stirring Pride, Ancestral Marking, and Henar's Courage. Thriving Tower is really good fast land for us here. Riverside View. The early blue is not as important, I guess, if you have Rhinodophobia in hand and no other creatures. It's good for that, I suppose. And, you know, you can play it turn 3 to play your Private Eye, whereas Tropical Channel would have been tapped on turn 3. So yeah, 6 forests, 2 plains, 2 mana Confluence. I'm kind of tempted to do higher, but I think one way this deck loses is being raced by an aggro deck before you stabilize with life gain auras. So I didn't want too many mana Confluence. 2 Hinterland Harbor. We don't have that many forests and islands, so I didn't want to push my luck with like 3 of those. And the blue isn't that important. We only have blue for Private Eye and Rhinodophobia. There were some other blue auras that were intriguing to me, but like one that costs 2 mana gives you +1/+0 and unblockable. But Spectral Boon kind of does that better, and it gives size for blocking and other things. So I think the blue's still necessary because you need the 2/3 hexproof. And Rhinodophobia is nice, but there's not a lot of blue here. We're mostly just kind of sprinkling the blue in for that. Sideboard, Overgrowth Instigator. One way you can beat Boggles decks is just by countering any Boggle they try and cast. Excuse me. So Overgrowth Instigator from Erelu is a 4 mana Boggle. It does have haste and hexproof and can't be countered, so that's good. Runic Sealer is, if there's specific cards in the matchup you really just don't want to see, landing that is good. Then they spend the removal on your Runic Sealer, right? But at least they're not spending it on other things they're protecting, like Boon Artisan and Moonweaver. I haven't decided exactly what the best case scenarios are for this, but I think it's got to be a good sideboard card here, particularly if you're worried about a sweeper that they're bringing in from the side or something. Playing this proactively can be really good. Imperial Claim I've always loved as a sideboard card from Scriptures of Urshad. Just eliminating any artifact or enchantment is really good. Giving them a treasure token can be problematic sometimes, specifically against combo decks like Full Automation or Invoke the Ankylos, where you're like ramping them that 1 extra mana. So you got to be careful when you do it, but in a lot of matchups, like hitting their Tradition is really good. Hitting, you know, not Eon Overwatch, but the 4 mana one that draws them a card each turn. Things like that. Just like, and for 1 mana is really good. Very good tempo. Since we're an aggressive deck, being able to just spend that last mana to blow them out, blow out a Path of Brutality, can be very good. 4 negates for combo decks. We have no way to interact with combo at all. So negate is pretty important. If there's specific spells they have that you're worried about, Runic Sealer can help with that, but I guess also some negates. I don't really want to dilute this deck. It's very linear, as I mentioned earlier. I think it might be Communes that I pull out of the sideboard in my games, just because this is more for consistency. I think some of these one-ofs are things I'd pull out, like Mighty Persistence and Griffin's Grace might be things to go against certain matchups. And yeah, and then Commune with Contra. And then Vane's Choice. That is something from the sideboard that can do a lot of different things. If they're trying to get our Bogles with Edicts, casting some soldier tokens to kind of intercept the Edict is good. Or giving your creatures indestructible if they have a sweeper like Wrath of Mod or Planar, not Planar Outburst, but not Planar Cleansing, Citywide Restructuring. And then it also helps against some combo decks. So like if they're an aggressive Reanimator deck or full auto, I guess we can't stop Dystopolith from coming into play because it's not a creature, but cheating in Eon Overwatches and things like that, we can stop that in its tracks with Vane's Choice. So kind of a Swiss Army knife there. Same with Runic Sealer. Imperial Claim's good. Negate does a lot of stuff for us. And this for, our specific issue against counter magic decks. That is Bant Bogles. And I'm going to try and record my matches from the tournament so you guys can see it in action. Can't promise if it's going to be good or not. I haven't tested this deck a ton, but it's linear enough. I think I can't have built it too incorrectly, although there's some cards that I could see being removed or pulled out or swapped out for something else. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.